Thank you for joining today on the discussion about AI-powered role alignment. The punchline is the job descriptions really don't explain how things are going to get done. I was hoping to get more HR people on today's call, but majority of the people are operational end. And that's the challenge. HR is running on job description, operations is running on, well, that depends on your company. Let's take a look at this. So the AI transformation, there's a gap that's killing it. And that's because there's a conflict between job descriptions and process reality. No one's arguing that the AI technology works, but the accountability structure doesn't. And this impacts governance, it impacts return on all sorts of things. So as you've probably heard over and over, we're not failing because of technology, but accountability is. And again, if no one job description owns the how, accountability for the AI outputs is undefined from day one. Let's just look at the difference between how the companies are working and actually why we have mostly operations people on today's call and no one from HR. Let's look at the job description world. It talks about responsibilities, outcomes, authority, maybe some qualifications and experience. And it's broad, and they're intentionally vague because there's a bunch of role changes going on. And that's one thing, is that in the IPE, the Integrated Process Excellence world, we really don't care about the org chart because that can change all the time. But the how, the steps, the methods, the sequences, the standards, the process variables, those don't change a lot. So we're wrestling with an org chart that when it changes messes everything up. Now again, the job descriptions are intentionally vague, I get that. But operation looks at specific, actionable, step-by-step kind of information. And when you go through this, we start looking at, what activities, what competency, the governance touch points, escalation triggers, and the metrics. Everyone's talking about key performance indicators, which is great, but how does my process variable impact the result? There's basically three alignment failures when you try to compare your processes with your job descriptions. And that is accountability without a method. And what I mean by that is the job description assigns ownership to somebody, but how I do it, again, is undefined. And when the results fail, there's no one really accountable. Or there's a method without ownership. So we'll talk about IPE packs in a minute, but the IPE pack defines every step in detail, and we can't find any job description that claims that responsibility. So execution kind of relies on whoever shows up that day. And then there's also governance, but it's not specific. So some executive job descriptions claim they have to do operational excellence, but they lack review cadence, escalation triggers, metrics that are all defined in the IPE pack. So by comparing job descriptions with your processes, you're going to compare how things are done with what I'm telling them to be done. So I'm not quite sure yet if we have to update all the job descriptions, but I want to make sure that when you go through this analysis, you're going to find some things that there's no one assigned to it, and nobody understands the escalation process. So think about this in 5 steps, if you will. One is you got to define the IPE packs, and again, I'll talk about that in a minute. But that's where every activity, accountability, competency, metrics from the IPE packs can get loaded in what I refer to as a master role register, tagged by step, function, and governance level. Step 2, go ahead and scan your job descriptions. Ingest them into the AI tool. and parse out stated responsibility, decision rights, reporting instructions, performance metrics. By the way, just quick tangent. The first time I did this, I just graduated from Texas A&M, studying automated manufacturing, early expert systems, and AI activity. And I switched from making 350 fenders an hour in automotive to making one B-1 bomber landing gear every 18 months. And when I went into that job, I got a job description from HR. Now, it was the first time I really walked into the three-ring binder environment where all these procedures are defined, all this stuff is laid out. So I went through and highlighted everywhere in the procedure, it said the director of quality engineering shall. Lo and behold, it was far more extensive, far more detailed than the job description. So step 3, cross-reference and gap analysis. Run a comparison between the IPE activities against all the job descriptions that you just loaded in phase 2, producing 4 status for each outcome. And look at the output in phase 4 as governance reviews from executives, manager, and frontline, each with a gap report, each with an overlap report. And if we have to rewrite job descriptions, some recommendations that can close the gap. All this can be done with an AI-assisted workflow. Uploading the IPE role master, putting in the job descriptions, looking at governance level, and get a 4 status gap analysis in seconds. I mean, when I did that at the landing gear company, it took me, I don't know, 2-3 weeks to go through all the binders. This is where it starts to get really exciting. So here's what we're going to find. Get the role master in, scan the job descriptions, but there's basically 4 outcomes. So it's covered. What I mean by that is the IPE pack activities, process activities, are in a job description and appropriately assigned to the correct governance tier. No action required, that's fine. But there's also missing, and that means there's an activity, there's a process activity is required, but it doesn't appear in a job description for the role that's expected to own it. So in that case, we probably might want to look at rewriting the job description. This most frequently occurs at the front level, the frontline level. But there's also a duplicate. And what I mean by that is the same accountability is claimed by more than one role, creating ownership ambiguity and really no defined primary owner. That's kind of where we get into governance. You know, who's accountable and who's responsible. And then there's a gap. And this one's a real eye-opener. There's a process activity that's required, but no current role or job description anywhere in the organization formally owns it. And that signals either a missing role or a role that needs to be created. So when you look at this, when you look at the ability to say at the executive level, here's strategic accountability gaps. At the manager level, here's operational ownership conflicts. And at the front line level, here's execution. Again, that's splitting it across different people, different personas, different levels, and different things that they're working on and that they care about. So this type of analysis gives you 3 actionable deliverables, a gap report. That documents every process activity that's required that no job description formally owns. And it provides a precise inventory of assigned accountability or unassigned, accountability across the organization. 2 is the overlap report. Every activity that appears in more than one job description simultaneously. The ambiguity produces, the escalation figures, the duplicated efforts, and undefined decision rights. All are needed in an AI environment to get the governance and control we're looking for. And then the third one is we might want to rewrite some of the job descriptions. Given actionable specific text proposed for the job description to explicitly assign what you want them to do and how to do it. In typical executive engagements, 40% of the frontline activities are either missing from job descriptions or duplicated across roles. So handling these mismatches is kind of important. The AI analysis engine works from the IPE PAC's process definition and accountabilities, not exact titles. Doesn't really care who the title is. But when a title has no direct match, the diagnosis comes up with, it's an inferred role. It isn't in the PAC anywhere, but activities match. Or it's a coverage pending. That means a function like cybersecurity flags PAC coverage pending rather than a broken role. And path 3 is a governance mismatch. That means a director doesn't match the authority of a manager, and the engine will adjust actual decision right to present false, misleading flags. So again, what I'm suggesting is probably one of the most powerful things that every company can do right now is ingest the IPE PACs, the baseline, put the job descriptions in, calibrate and compare the two, and then get the output that gives you a specific actionable result. Now, one of the things that's interesting, by the way, I'm a manufacturing guy. I grew up on the plant. I grew up in operations. There's a lot of things we do in manufacturing that we don't do in the non-manufacturing departments. For example, manufacturing capacity. How many of these can we do? Think about this. Once we get to a process definition with the IPE PACs, we now have an ability to look at capacity across non-manufacturing areas. I mean, we know available work hours, we know the head count, we know what kind of variables they have. We can get either estimates or actuals if we start collecting that information. And we get a defensible staffing gap and finding out where there are some employees that might be surplus. So what I'm talking about is without role alignment analysis, 3 dimensions shift independently. By explicitly locking the what you want me to do and how you want me to do it, organizations create the essential foundation for deployment and operational excellence. So what's the solution? I've been talking about IPE. I just want to tell you a little bit about it. Integrated process excellence is an agentic AI framework. It's a deployment model. It's how to do what I was just talking about. 6 steps that go through and create these IPE PACs. What's an IPE PAC? It's basically, as part of the integrated process excellence architecture, we build mission, vision, values, beliefs for each of the departments. We define inputs, process, outputs for each of the groups. Again, by the way, this now is a horizontal view of a process. It's not a vertical view of org charts. We can look at cause and effect tables, one of the most powerful parts of it, where if we want plant managers to improve return on asset earned, it would be helpful if we could tell them all the processes that make return on asset earned go up or down. And then a process model that starts laying out, essentially, if you think of it as a playbook. This is how the positions on the team execute. So a critical takeaway from this conversation is job descriptions provide broad responsibility. IPE PACs provide specific execution. And basically, without IPE, you got governance without specificity. Again, one is an HR view, one is an operations view. And when you do this analysis, you're going to find some interesting things. Either it's covered, it's missing, or it's a gap, it's duplicated, and I got multiple roles doing it, or it's unassigned. There's no one working on this. There's a lot more information on this on LinkedIn if you want to see it. There's a whole bunch of videos on YouTube, and all these books are available supporting this on Amazon. Again, brief overview. Let's see if we have any questions. There's a couple coming in. Can I do this process without IPE PACs? I'm hesitating because I haven't tried it. I'm not quite sure what results you'll get. Without an IPE PAC, the only thing you really have are all the 3-ring binders or policies, procedure, work instructions in SharePoint or a K drive. You can try it, but the risk, here's the bottom line. The risk is I'm not convinced that the policies, work instructions, SOPs, procedures actually reflect what you're doing. Those were usually written for not operations. They were written for how do I comply with customer quality requirements or cybersecurity or other subjects. And they're kind of random things created to do that. Follow-up question from that gentleman. Can I do it for just one department? Yeah, that you could do. You could do an IPE pack for one group. The only thing you'll miss if you do it for one department, the IPE packs are created so that the inputs, process, and outputs, again, are horizontal. I'll give you an example. I was deploying this with a company, and operations was always complaining about purchasing. And purchasing takes forever to buy stuff. So they're a customer in that case. Purchasing is a process, the customer's operation. However, purchasing will quickly point out that operations is also an input. And their comment is, if you just send me a purchase requisition for a computer, I got a lot of work to do. You want a big computer, you want a little computer, you want a Macintosh, you want an Apple. I mean, there's just so much variables. So their point is, even though the operations is the customer, they're also the supplier. And if they give complete and accurate requirements of what they want us to buy, we can buy them very quickly. So there's some trade-off on that if you just do it for one department. All right, looks like we've got one last question. How does this impact performance reviews? That's an interesting question. I was with a group of HR people yesterday, and they were talking about HR reviews and how they're, let me paraphrase. Basically, they didn't say how they're worthless, but how no one likes them. Well, here's an example of it. We'll do a sports analogy. If you look at any sports team, football, baseball, basketball, soccer, it doesn't matter. All those teams have a clearly defined players on the team, the rules. But what they also have is a playbook that they practice over and over and over. And that's what most non-sports organizations don't have. They have the positions on the team, they think, from an org chart, and they have the playbook kind of in procedures and policies. But here's the bottom line. If all I'm getting reviewed against is a job description that tells me what they want, that'd be like going to a quarterback on a football team and say, here's what I want you to do. I want you to win more games. And say, okay, well, how did you do with that? And of course, they have statistics on it. But in sports, they go way beyond it because the processes are defined. How many pass attempts do you have? How many times did you run on second down? I mean, there's so many metrics and statistics in the how, the process. And that's how sports teams win. That's how our organizations have to win. All right, that's the last question. If you want to learn more, I'm happy to engage with you. Our company provides executive briefings, one-day seminars, 4-day workshops, actual project management or deployment management, and resources if you need them. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good day.